Robots Radio. Games, lore, stories, community. Just press play. This show is brought to you by our patrons at patreon.com/Elder Scrolls Lorecast.
Robots Radio presents The Elder Scrolls Lorecast.
Welcome to the Elder Scrolls Lorecast, a place where the Elder Scrolls community can come together to discuss the boundaries of our knowledge about the universe of the Elder Scrolls. Adventurers, welcome back to the Elder Scrolls Lorecast. This is your host, Tom, or Robots, and I'm here with my good buddy, Lotus of Doom, in order to talk with you guys about Lotus's favorite Deadric Prince. Lotus, are you ready?
It's Hermaeus-Mora time.
It's Hermaeus-Mora time.
It's Hermaeus-Mora time. Why not Hermaeus-Mora?
Why not Hermaeus-Mora?
The first edition I got to be involved with for Lorecast.
Yeah, the first episode you were on, man.
It was the first episode I was on. We made that weird off-brand joke about why not Hermaeus-Mora, which became a pretty popular shirt. One which, now that I realize I squandered my own opportunity for the video version, should have worn my version. I have that shirt.
Yeah, I thought about wearing it too, but I didn't want to dig it out of my laundry pile.
Yeah,
I got kind of lazy about it. I did think about it, but then I was like, most people listen to the show. They won't be able to see it on me anyway.
Yeah, so that's why. I did the exact same thing. I forgot to wear my shirt, but whatever. Hermaeus-Mora.
Hermaeus-Mora.
Greatest Deadric Prince. Unquestionably, this will be a totally unbiased episode and not me just fanning out over how much I love Hermaeus-Mora.
Yeah. Well, we're just gonna go ahead and get into it then, because there's all sorts of fun stuff to talk about when it comes to Hermaeus-Mora.
And Hermaeus-Mora, being one of the Daedra, is got a decent bit of a background. So it's not there's a decent bit to cover in terms of old Hermy.
Yeah. So let's go through all the titles. We've got Hermaeus-Mora with the different spellings. And then there's also Herma-Mora, which is fairly standard in the lore. It comes up pretty commonly. The Demon of Knowledge, the Master of the Tides of Fate, the Gardener of Men. The Prince of Fate, Lord of Secrets, Keeper of Forbidden Knowledge, the Golden Eye, Daedra, Golden Eye, like you said, Daedra, Abyssal Cephalarch. The
only reason,
oh my God.
I told you that the one time that I'll be able to help with pronunciations, hopefully, is this episode, just because I've dealt so much with Hermaeus-Mora. But yes, I believe the correct way. Yeah, it's Cephalarch.
Yeah, it's the spelling is Cephaliarch. So
rolls right off the tongue.
You can see why that one's weird. Old Antecedent, Scryer, Inevitable Knower, Lord of Knowledge, the One Who Knows, and is also known as at Morans and Bosmer as Herma-Mora, which was mentioned before. But this one has a dash in it instead of quotes around Herma. So slightly different. The Woodland Man, which is for some reason the creepiest one to me.
It's very creepy, and actually back originally it was one of the ones, and I even tried to look this up, and the Woodland Man, it's just a creepy vibe, which it's not at least I've never found a direct reference to why that exact phrase is used. But since, the Bosmer kind of have their own take on Hermaeus-Mora, as most cultures do, it would, I could see the potential for, like, okay, if you're seeing this shape out in the woods or whatever, and Hermaeus-Mora, unlike the other Daedric princes, where we've made reference to the fact that sometimes it's a little tricky to nail down exactly their form. Right. Hermaeus-Mora takes the cake on this one, because Hermaeus-Mora is essentially completely no reference to human form whatsoever, other than the fact that it has an eyeball or many eyeballs.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's very amorphous. He's drastically different depending upon game, but like Hermaeus-Mora is very much an it rather than really being able to put your thumb on exactly, this is the female version or this is the male version. It's just, this is the squid version. This is the lobster version. This is the smoky version.
Right.
This is the one with extra tentacles. It's not quite the same as with a lot of the other Deadric Princes.
Right. This is the first one that we've discussed in this series that we're doing right now that doesn't typically take on a humanoid kind of form.
Right.
Hermaeus-Mora doesn't really care about appearing in a guise that is particularly appealing or even easy to communicate with when it comes to mortals.
Yeah.
So the idea that like the woodland man, this idea that like he would take on a man-like form at all, is kind of this foreign concept compared to the way that we, at least in the games, typically see him. And you've described that before. Like most of the time when we see Hermaeus-Mora, he's seen as some sort of blob with tentacles and eyes and claws, and he's kind of amorphous many times.
Quite frequently.
Mm-hmm. So this idea that like he would be described as the woodland man actually is a very old description in the lore, and we can get into that in a little bit. But that one just creeps me out. This idea that this old ancient description of him being the woodland man is just there's something about that is just like it has this vibe of old mythology. The kind of stories that people told centuries ago that, you know, somebody went out in the dark and in the woods, and these are the things that they came across in the woods at night, and then they came home and told stories about it. It borders on the mythology of the world of fairy, and I'm using fairy in the very old mythological sense of it, the sense that somebody like J.R.R. Tolkien was tapping into when he was describing hobbits or men stealing into the realm of Lothlorien or something like that, and seeing the realm of the elves and not really being able to describe it because it felt like it was this other realm. And the Elder Scrolls kind of plays on this a little bit with the world of the Daedra, with Oblivion, this sense that they themselves exist in this plane that is other than what mortals are used to.
Exactly.
It is kind of this realm of fairy, and that is a very old kind of ancient Indo-European concept, this realm of the other. And all of this kind of ties back to that for me. And I have a feeling that the authors, when they used these terms, were kind of relaying that kind of concept. This idea that like, if you travel too far from the places of man, from the village, you might wander into this world of the fairy, to this world of the other. And maybe the woodland man might come upon you and it might drive you insane. Like that kind of thing.
Which ironically happens to many people who kind of get lost in the stacks of Apocrypha. And this kind of insanity has a tendency to catch up to them as they search obsessively in the literal term. Like they become obsessed with this type of forbidden knowledge or unending knowledge, and it causes insanity in a lot of people. So
yeah this idea that like you could travel beyond the realms that we know into this other place and see things that aren't for mortal eyes. And that's exactly what Hermaeus-Mora represents. There's a few other titles here. Herma-Mora for the Aliads, and of course the Khajiit with Herma-Mora with an AH at the end, which is one of those spellings they like to They like to change with AH, you know.
Very fancy.
It's very fancy, very cat-like. So those are the different descriptions. And a lot of those, like we were mentioning, tie back to this concept of knowledge, forbidden knowledge, the writing down of information, the pulling in of knowledge and information, all of these kinds of concepts. And like you were saying, his realm or its realm or their realm, depending on how you describe Herma-Mora, and if they're a person or a force of nature or whatever, like we've discussed before, is the realm of Apocrypha, which is an interesting title. Lourdes, I've studied Bible stuff and that kind of thing. Yep. The word Apocrypha, when it's used biblically, means the books of the Bible that were not canonized. Do you know about this?
Right. Yeah, I vaguely, I knew there was something about that, but I'm not like an expert on that. So it's like, I just thought it was like more of like unreliable, but I guess that's kind of like tangentially a stretch to what you're saying. It's
a synonymous way of thinking about it. So yeah,
sure.
So like when you're looking at the Gospels, for example, you got like Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, right? Those are the canonized versions of the Gospel. So I believe it was like the Council of Nicaea in the 3rd century. They got a bunch of the church leaders together and they were like, okay, which of these books do you guys rely on the most and do you believe are the most accurate? Is basically the question they posed to all of these church leaders, and they all voted on it. That's how canonization worked. It wasn't like God came out of heaven and was like, and behold, these shall be the books of the Bible from now and forever. No, they got a bunch of church leaders together and they voted and said, okay, these are the ones that we think are the most accurate or the ones that are the most useful in our church services. And they voted like that. And the ones at the front of the Bible are the ones that actually got the most votes.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that's why the book of Revelation, which is not Revelations. So people who say the book of Revelations, no, there's no plural. It ends with an N.
It's the book of Revelation.
Right. There's only one Revelation. That book is at the end because it got the least amount of votes and it barely ended up in the Bible. Anyway, those 4 Gospels are the ones that actually got canonized. But there are dozens of Gospels out there, and many of them are considered the apocryphal Gospels. Apocryphal meaning non-canonized. So the realm of Apocrypha is named that because it is this realm of forbidden knowledge. It is the non-canon knowledge. It is the information that you're not supposed to read.
Right. And to that point, which is actually kind of interesting because I had never really thought about it until we kind of discussed it like that, is other than, maybe scrapped ideas and stuff like that, forbidden knowledge that the series hasn't delved into yet that, basically would go there. It's kind of interesting that it's just with it being his search for all knowledge whatsoever. It seems like that would be a good phrase for it because it would include both the stuff that is in the series as canonized and also if it's looking for all knowledge, you can throw all the other junk in there too. And it's like, hey, it's probably an apocrypha that might have just been scrapped, like might not have come to fruition, might have been an old concept that got, rewritten or something like that. So it's kind of interesting to think of it as like a weird fourth wall breaking name for the place that holds all the ideas that could or are in the series, as well as those that kind of didn't make it or haven't made it yet, so to speak.
Yeah, that's a cool way to think about it. And all knowledge, it's not all truth. That's something that's also interesting to think about. All knowledge is all knowledge. All knowledge is not necessarily true.
Correct.
So I think that's part of what drives people insane is that when given too much information, you begin to have a hard time discerning truth from falsity, and your grip on reality starts to weaken because how do you then determine up from down, left from right, reality from non-reality,
right?
All of that.
And I wish I remembered the book exactly offhand. I think it might be, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I believe it might be the book on Oblivion, where there is the mage who traverses through the plains of Oblivion, and eventually his journey on reporting back ends when he gets to Apocrypha because he's basically driven mad in Apocrypha, searching through the stacks and basically his quest for knowledge is given free reign in all directions, which kind of like overloads him, and that's pretty much the end of the mage. I think the book is on Oblivion, if I'm not mistaken. I actually should have looked that up, but either way, the idea that I like about that is, other than just the knowledge aspect, and to anybody who hasn't seen a rendition of what Apocrypha is, because some of the Daedric Prince's realms we haven't seen in a game. We have seen Apocrypha very specifically in the Dragonborn expansion to Skyrim. You go to Apocrypha. We had talked about it when we were discussing the Mirac episode.
Yeah.
But basically, the quick overview of Apocrypha is it's stacks of books. There's, liquid ink everywhere. The ground is made of pages of books and bindings and stuff. And then all around the outer portions of the solid area you walk on is just this seas of just this weird green liquid type of deal.
Yeah.
And one of the things that, you want to go all the way back. It's one of my favorite phrases. And in the UESP, they specifically have the title mentioned in the section when we were going through all of Hermaeus-Mora's many, many titles, the Master of the Tides of Fate. One of the things, and what that is from, is the Elder Scrolls legend Battlespire, in which when you're reading through the books in there, you can pick up a book and it gives you like a quick background of the Daedric Princes. And that was one of my favorite phrases, is Hermaeus-Mora is searching scrying the tides of fate. And one, I think that's a really cool way. That just sounds cool. Like, that just sounds badass. It's like, oh man, that's creepy. Like, it's like, oh, scrying the tides of fate. But the thing about that is the oceans of that weird green liquid give physical manifestation to the tides, which is actually kind of weird. I always found, because there's also, as we've brought up many times, the comparison to memories having a link to water in the series.
Right.
So I always found it interesting that Hermaeus-Mora's realm essentially has its own almost corrupted version of that, where I think it's just like, it gives this cool vibe, whether intended or not. This is much more my take on it than like a thing written. It's neat that there's like the Oblivion version that he controls, where he sees all of these things in his tides of fate, theoretically, which I just thought was a really cool visual thing they used to represent the distance you can't go for gameplay reasons in Apocrypha. I just thought it was like a really good way of giving a visual version of like what is technically out there. It's because it's just limitless in all directions, theoretically, which is, when you say limitless, it's kind of weird, because that's the concept of infinity is kind of hard to wrap your head around as a physical thing, because we have a limit to what we can comprehend. So just having these tides of fate go off in all these different directions, which he reads, and that's kind of the idea behind how the Elder Scrolls work, as their like guidelines through different, potential destinies and stuff like that. It's all gets pretty weird, but ties in a lot to Hermaeus-Mora and his ability to read and predict stuff, but also not have just like it's not that he knows everything. Right.
Because scrying means foretelling.
Right. So it seems like,
or predicting.
And he's always trying to gather more knowledge, implying that he doesn't literally know everything.
Yeah.
But he's kind of like the center point that tries to collect it all. Mm-hmm. And it's just like the other thing that because it's not really, I don't know if it's necessarily canon or not, because I believe it's from the forums a while back, and it was from previous writer of the series, Michael Kirkbride. But one of the things that I did think was cool, the way it was phrased, I actually wish I knew the exact date for it, but the part that I'm going to reference, which you can look up on the Imperial Library, I'm sure, as they have all of this documented, is the fact that he's made of scraps of previous kalpas.
Oh, that's
which is also yeah, that's like another thing where it's just this unending. He's not really a being so much as just this conglomeration of the thing that he's constantly trying to do, which is garner knowledge, and he's made of that knowledge, sort of.
Right. He is himself a vessel that is trying to be composed of the knowledge and continues to fill itself.
Yeah, it gets a little weird.
Yeah. I wonder how canon that actually is, but that is interesting.
It was just a reference thing that I thought was cool because it theoretically fits with his vibe really well.
Right.
So it's just a thing I always thought was a neat addition because it doesn't strike me as being canon by needing to break any other rules. It's just like, yep, that fits. Like I could totally see that if, the Kalpic cycle is considered, a thing that they want to stick with. Right.
Talking about things being kind of patched together, the Ogma Infinium,
yes,
the Book of Knowledge, the cover of that itself is a patchwork.
Exactly. In fact, it's kind of a gross patchwork,
right?
As it's made of the skin of the races of the inhabitants of Nirn, which is kind of gross.
Right. So, this is interesting. So the Ogma Infinium, also known as the Tome of Power, the Librum of Knowledge, and the Book That Knows, is an ancient tome of knowledge and an artifact of great power, written by Xerxes, the scribe of Ariel, who had been granted the knowledge within by Hermaeus-Mora. The name of the tome comes from Ogma, the wife of Xerxes, whom he created from his favorite moments in history. There you go. That's it right there on the
for
screen.
Anybody on the live, I actually have a physical Ogma Infinium. I use it to keep notes.
Super gross.
But it is literally stitched together skin of the different races of Tamriel.
Yeah. The knowledge within the tome grants the reader access to the artifact's energy, which can be manipulated to achieve near demigod abilities. The paths of steel, shadow, and spirit are the three main sections of the tome. Once the Ogma Infinium is used, it disappears from its owner's possession. But it's kind of it fits the theme of collecting some of the...
It sure does. And the quest in Skyrim to get the Ogma Infinium requires you to collect blood of the different races around Tamriel as well. So it's like you're killing whoever you need and then juicing them so that you can provide it to, so it's a lot of collection. That's a big go-to for Hermaeus-Mora, is a lot of collecting information one way or another, including his Daedric artifact, which we can get into. It's like one of my favorite Daedric artifacts. And
go ahead. Sure.
It was actually around it's a bit of trivia, I guess, which I didn't know originally. It was around before Hermaeus-Mora was written into the lore, because you can get the Ogma Infinium in Elder Scrolls 1 Arena.
Oh, wow.
But
later on, they wrote him in and then associated.
Correct. The artifact actually existed before him. The reason it's my favorite Daedric artifact, and there's varying degrees of, it's implemented a little differently in each game, but essentially, unlike, a weapon of some type, you read the Ogma Infinium when you get it. It's prone to being glitchy, so you can kind of abuse it and reread it a bunch of times, including in Elder Scrolls 1 Arena. But you can read it, and it just outright makes your character better. You pick skill lines, and it just increases them. In Elder Scrolls 1 Arena, I believe you pick stats, and you can straight up improve them.
Straight up buff.
Yeah. And it's like there's no drawbacks to this thing usually, except that you can't pick all of them all the time. But then, like I mentioned, with it being a tad glitchy, not that I would, of course, recommend you do something like this, but sometimes you can get it back, like in Elder Scrolls 1 Arena, to get the Ogma Infinium. you can just like redo the quest. you get it back. So you can just reread it again. It's like, oh wow, this makes me I can be as powerful as I want. But yeah, it's one of the ones that I always like to get, but I don't like to use it until I'm pretty powerful, because it ignores how much XP is required to level you and just gives you the levels. So it's great at late game.
It's more valuable the longer you wait to use it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yep. It's a very min-maxy number crunchy item, which is probably why I like it so much, because that's how I kind of play these games.
Yeah. So, okay. That makes sense. Yeah. So, okay. Well, we've got, we've got a few different things to cover still. I mean, there's a lot more we could talk about with Hermaeus, but why don't we go ahead and take our mid break, and then we're going to talk about some more of the details, including some of the other artifacts. And then of course we've got some other interesting facts for you guys about Hermaeus-Mora. So we'll be right back.
The skies are marked with numberless sparks, each a fire and every one a sign.
All right, here we are in the middle of the show, and man, you guys just keep signing up for the Patreon, so I really appreciate it. We've got some other new patron members to call out today, and thank you so much for joining us on the Patreon. We have I'm F, Avery G, Alex W, and John R all signing up this last week. So welcome to the Patreon. I'm glad you guys are here. It's nice and cozy in here with all 86 of us. Holy moly! And a big shout out for Mr. Gami Boy and Noodle Al Dente, our Daedric Princes, who have been hanging out with us for a long time now. So welcome to the Patreon. Thank you for being here. And if you're a tier 5 Daedric Prince, you get called out every week. And if we've done anything to help you get through your work week, you're just hanging out at work, listening to podcasts, if you're driving in your car, if you're working out, or if you are just playing all those awesome video games like Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, because Lotus and I are super excited about that game coming out, because we're gonna kill some peasants in that game. I booted that up.
We're saving the peasants.
Oh yeah, we gotta save them. That's right. I mean, yeah, that's much better. I booted that game up tonight because it released early and made my character, and he's ridiculous and has one really tiny eye and one really big eye. And Lotus and I are going to be playing that. I'll be streaming it some this week too, so it's going to be a lot of fun. But man, those games are a blast, and this one makes fun of Dungeons and Dragons, so that's especially fun. But thank you to everybody who signs up on the Patreon, and if we're helping you get through your work days and all that kind of stuff, go to patreon.com/Elder Scrolls Lorecast and check all the different tiers. You get ad-free episodes. You can sign up to get access to the 90-ish early episodes of the show where it was just me before Lotus came along, and you can check out all those different episodes. You can get to join us on our patron chat, and we're doing that next week. That's just a week away on the 31st. And if you are a tier 4 or higher patron, we can hang out with you guys on the stream, on the live stream. You can be on the podcast. And you know what, Lotus, I was kicking around some ideas. I was thinking about this, and I was thinking, if you were going to be a Daedric Prince, like if you because there's the subjects in Elder Scrolls of like mantling.
Yeah.
And coming to
who
power.
Would you mantle?
Who would you mantle?
Ooh, that sounds weird phrasing.
Yeah, okay, but like you get where I'm going with this, right? Like
I know what you're saying.
If you were like in the world, if you were like some powerful mage in Tamriel, and you're like, okay,
all right, I
have the potential here. Like I've been studying magic for a long time. I've got the power. I have the devices to do this. I could legitimately take on a Daedric Prince at this point. Maybe not an Aedra, but a Daedra, and mantle them. Right. And mantle them and take on their position and become immortal. Which one would you do? But you'd also become them, right? Like you'd have to take on their station in the hierarchy. You'd take on like their role. You'd basically have to become them. Like, which one would you do? Because there's definitely some benefits and definitely some drawbacks for all of them.
Yep. That's kind of good. I like that. I like that. And it does yet again bring up, why not Hermaeus-Mora?
Yeah, not in chat says, why not Hermaeus-Mora?
Exactly.
I mean, if you want to be a big blob eye guy who's, that one could be interesting.
I mean, there's a lot of knowledge at your disposal.
It's true.
Not a lot of drawbacks.
It's true. You want to mantle that Hermaeus-Mora?
It's just, you can become gaseous at the drop of a hat.
Amazing how it works.
It's a selling point, right?
So let us know, patrons, if you guys want to talk about that next week. But that's happening a week from when we are recording this on Thursday night, 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Pacific. And that's what we'll be chatting about. Maybe, unless you guys have some other ideas and we were going to change it up. But that's what we got going on. And I'd also be reading out some ratings and reviews, but we don't have any new ones to call out, or at least we don't have any new reviews to read out. I'm sure we got some ratings and stuff.
Not with words.
I'm not going to be like
zillion 5-star reviews, which are appreciated.
Well, very much appreciated. But I'm not going to be like, and we have this 5-star review. Like, 'cause I don't know who left them. We just see the numbers, right? But thank you for taking the time to leave us ratings and reviews. If we do get a new review, I'll read them out on a future episode of the show. But on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, those are the places you can do that. And it helps a ton. It really does help us stay up high in the rankings. And every single one of you who takes the time to do that, very, very much appreciated. And, sharing the show with your friends is another great way to do it. Whether you do that like in person or just share a link on social media or whatever. All of this absolutely helps, especially because this is a full-time job for me. This is my career now. So every little bit helps to make this show keep going, and it also helps to pay the bills and pay for things like insurance and car payments and stuff like that. So I very much appreciate it. Thank you to everybody, and let's get on with the rest of the show.
Yes, you're entirely brilliant. Conquering madness and all that. Blah 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 blah.
All right, Lotus, do you have any other? I know Hermy's your favorite.
Hermy is my favorite.
Hermy's your favorite. I'm gonna let you drive a little bit here. Is there what's the next thing you want to talk about? Because there's a few different ways we can go with the rest of the show. But what's the next thing you want to discuss?
So, since I kind of went on my initial tangent and even jumped into the Daedric artifact, should we go and just cover the other two of note?
Yeah. Maybe let's talk about it.
So that we don't get too off base from where we were going with that, because there are two other Daedric artifacts related to him. One of which, I don't know, I guess it's kind of weird. One of which is not one, it's multiple. Right.
Well, but the books, right? The black books.
Yeah, the black books, which I think maybe we should delve into next.
Okay.
Which the black books are items that you can get from Skyrim. That's where they were introduced. That's the first place that they kind of were referenced, as far as I know. But the black books are Daedric artifacts created by Hermaeus-Mora, the Prince of Fable. Okay, we don't. Each book contains a manner of forbidden knowledge. Some of the books are ancient. Sorry,
right, they're from the ancient past, right?
Yes, from the ancient past. Some are from the future. So again, it's more knowledge-based stuff.
How does that work? Right.
Again, I'm assuming this ties into some of the weirdnesses of the way the Elder Scrolls work, where it's like, well, are they a potential future? Are they a future that didn't happen? Are they? It's
scrying the timeline in order to like put this down in a book and then put it out in the world, which of course messes with people's perception of reality.
Yeah. And then the USB references the thick tomes are bound in black covers, a symbol representing Mora on the front that emit a black mist, which is pretty cool. It's the best reference point I have for it is it's very similar to, we had made reference to the ebony armor where you kind of like mist. It's very similar to that when you're wearing that, except it's coming out of the book itself. I think they have a really cool effect.
You know what would be really cool is if they sold these on the store.
I would
and
be
it
all
was like
about
a coffee table item, and you could fill it up. You could the book was empty.
Oh, and have it be.
But you could like fill the inside with water, and it was like battery powered or something. And when you closed it, it would
it could be a humidifier as well.
It was like a humidifier, right? And it would like mist out the top.
That's genius.
And it would sit on your coffee table. So when you had a party or something, you could have like a black book on your coffee table, like
I
misting
would buy the crap out of that.
just off your cup. That would be awesome. And people would be like, what's with the book?
Yeah.
Why is there's something wrong with your book, Lotus? And you'd be like, no, there's not. That's just what it does.
That's supposed to be the goal to like, coffee table books, isn't it? I think that's supposed to spark conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, a misting demonic tome on your coffee table seems like that would be a pretty good conversation starter, at least.
Right. Yeah, like, oh, pictures of waterfalls, places to visit while in Minnesota for some reason. The black books
this one's emanating moisture
of Hermaeus-Mora, emanating a creepy mist. Weird selection you have there, Lotus.
Perfect. Would you like some more chili cheese fries?
Thanks for coming to my party, everybody. Sorry, go on.
No, it's fine. They're comparable to the Augment Infinium in the idea of they're another tome of knowledge from Hermaeus-Mora. The books were spread across Tamriel by Mora and are usually located in the depths of ancient dungeons, which that's where you find them throughout the island of Solstheim. Through reading a black book, the reader will enter Apocrypha, the realm of oblivion created by and ruled over by, obviously, Hermaeus-Mora. Mm-hmm. Tentacles will emerge from around the tome and envelop the reader.
Don't touch the book. Don't touch the book. It
literally grapples you and essentially pulls you into Apocrypha is how it works in game. An apparition of the reader's body remains in the Mundus. So it's like, the best way it's you can kind of explain it because there's a villager who, without spoiling too much, in Skyrim gets a version of this done to him against his will, but essentially it's just like this sucker device comes out and pulls your non-corporeal form into Apocrypha. So your husk is just chilling out there while I guess
why is Kevin just like vegging out on the couch at the party
just
with that
out,
black book on his lap
doing his thing?
Oh no, he opened the book.
Well,
Kevin.
And the other thing about that, which makes it kind of creepy, from a in-game way of dealing with this, is while you're in Apocrypha, just saying like, oh, you're up there is fine, except that when you leave Apocrypha by closing the black book and gaining some of its knowledge, you come back and you are not where you left yourself. Like your physical form has meandered off doing whatever. My favorite one was when you would come out of it and you would just be working on the statues and your character is just basically doing minor work without you having any input whatsoever, and you have to like get control back over your character model. So it's this weird, like they do a great job of giving you like a freaky out of body experience where it's like, hey, my character wasn't doing that. Stop that. What's going on here?
What's going on? Yeah, your body goes on to like autopilot mode.
Right. And that's just it. And that's kind of where I assume you get a lot of, it's similarly implied that that's what's kind of controlling a lot of the residents around the area. Mm-hmm. What do you call it? But yeah, so either way, that's kind of the overall thing with the black books. We don't need to go into every teeny tiny detail, but yeah, by reading them and closing the portion of Apocrypha you're in, you gain some type of skill-based advantage, very similar to what I was mentioning with the Augment Infinium. But yeah, they're really cool addition, and they're all, there's a decent amount of them all segmented with their own types of forbidden knowledge, which are pretty cool. Like I thought they were a great addition to the series, and like a similar but equally creepy version of something. It's like they didn't stray too far away, but at the same time, they are unique from just being more Augment Infinium, so to speak.
Yeah. Another book item, but a very different kind of thing.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we also have the first blade.
Yes. Which, do you want to do the first blade? Because this is super neat. Because this actually just came to the Elder Scrolls Online to 2 weeks ago from the date of this recording, I think. Maybe it was a week, but this was actually just put in as a cosmetic overlay you can do to your weapon in-game for Elder Scrolls Online, which is really neat.
Yeah, that is very cool. So this is also known as Mirak's sword. We did the episode on Mirak, right? And it's a very powerful sword linked to Apocrypha. So if you remember the episode on Mirak was hiding out in Apocrypha and was connected to Hermaeus-Mora with that whole storyline and everything going on there. It appears as a primal green blade with a writhing lurker-like tentacles wrapped around it, which extend to attack targets and drain their stamina during combat. When it is swung, it takes the shape of a tentacle and grows in length. And even when not being swung, the sword wreathes with tentacles around it, with them parting around the base of the sword to expose a green eye. It can be tempered with the use of ebony and Daedra hearts, much like the other Daedric weapons. It is unknown if the first blade was seen after the Merithic era, but by the second era, the Skull of Solstheim knew it as a strange sword that belonged to a renegade dragon priest named Mirak far in the distant past. So it was left in Solstheim after Mirak departed, but was well known as his weapon during the Merithic era. The sword was in possession of the renegade dragon priest Mirak, perhaps dating back to the time before the Dragon War, and was in his possession during his time in Apocrypha. In the Fourth Era 201, he used the sword while battling the last Dragonborn at the summit of Apocrypha, who killed him and took possession of the blade. So, I guess there's some mix of information there. Like, how did the Skull in the Second Era know of the sword, and yet it was with Mirak during all of that time?
It's a little weird, but then
I guess the information about it passed forward, even if it was with him in.
Perhaps the one thing that's interesting, just again, related to the Dragonborn expansion itself, is the Skull seem to have some way of keeping knowledge that Hermaeus-Mora himself struggles to get, as that's one of the objectives for you in that expansion. Mm-hmm. So it makes me curious if they had some deeper tie to that they might have some knowledge to that, along with, some of the other secrets that he essentially pries out of them at certain points, or tries to. I wonder how far back the Skull date with some of the information they have, because they're not this huge thriving society or anything like that. They're kind of like small scale in the grand scheme of things. It's interesting that they have stuff that Mora struggles to get. Yeah. I mean, they're kind of a Nordic tribe that live in or off the coast of Solstheim, right? Like, they're not known to have been anywhere else, or, I mean, they're a very small group of people. Exactly. So Rob the Princess says the Skull are the creepy woodsmen to Hermaeus-Mora. Maybe. Ooh, yeah. There's definitely some gaps of information, at least that I'm not aware of, in how some of this information got passed down, how they were aware of things. Right. And of course, we don't have. And how do you keep it from this demon that's literally, its creation and existence is around collecting knowledge? Like, how? Yeah. For all of this time, do they do to keep it away from Mora for millennia? Right. It's not from just the Merithic era on. Right. Exactly. Yeah. So it's an interesting note that somehow there's obviously something more with them. It actually makes me kind of curious. I kind of want to research the Skull for an episode now going forward. See if there's anything explained. Yeah. The Woodland Man, the Skull, the connections, like Hermaeus-Mora, like the name itself has something to do with the Woodland Man. Like that's part of the character's name. So there's definitely some stuff there. And before we go talking any more about that, we definitely need to research that. That one I'd rather research before just doing wild speculation. Right. There are definitely some things that I've read before, but I need to refresh myself on exactly what the details are on that. But those are the items. Those are the artifacts. Of course, Hermaeus-Mora shows up in the different games. He's involved in
Elder Scrolls Online. There's a lot of different stuff where he seems like he may even be in the background somehow, maybe plotting things or just kind of being involved, and we're not really sure. He's not one of like the forward facing super active characters, although he does take a very active role in Mirac and the events of the Dragonborn expansion. That's probably the most active we've seen him in any of the storylines that I'm aware of. Can you think of anything else?
Yeah, I mean, he has a few stray quests in Elder Scrolls Online, but again,
and not super active, more of like, correct, they're just kind of related to him.
There's a couple that are related to him. He does have his Seeker's Archive in the Craglorn region as well, which he has a really awesome statue inside the Seeker's Archive, which I still would really like them to implement as a housing item. That'd be cool. Because that's very cool. But yeah, it's a lot more of his stuff is tangentially related to him rather than him actively doing too much.
Or groups of people who are curious about him or worshiping him. Or
yes, and then you'll deal with them. There's a wood elf quest line like that.
Or a group of Bosmer who believe that their Hermaeus-Mora isn't the same as the Deadric Prince Hermaeus-Mora.
Yep.
Like things like that. Like people who swear that like he's a good force for knowledge, or the differences in the different races and cultures and the way that they see him. There's a lot of that kind of stuff, but the stuff that you deal with in the Dragonborn DLC where you actually like go to Apocrypha and you see the writhing massive blob going blah, 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 doing his funny voice thing, and then and you actually see like the bookcases and the poor souls who are like losing their minds and are trapped in Apocrypha. Like that is like super
his enemies,
active.
The Seekers, your enemies, his minions, the Seekers and the Lurchers and stuff like that are all of his like kind of abomination Daedric versions. The other thing too is the Vile Manse public dungeon. It's in Reaper's March in Elder Scrolls Online. That's tangentially related to somebody taking something from him that he did not approve of, which your goal is to squash that. So that's related to him as well. But to your point, he's never really, and even with the Dragonborn expansion, he's not this mastermind like, oh, it's time to take over.
Right.
There's points where it's like, yeah, do this because I want this. But like, it's not this, he's not prone to a world plot so far in the series the way Mehrunes Dagon constantly is, or Molag Bal or something like that.
Right. Or some of our suspicions about some of the other characters we talked about.
Correct.
We're like, what is their real goal here? Because they seem to be interfering with Mortal a lot. There's got to be something else going on. But he does. There's definitely moments where he's underlying things. And he's definitely accumulating knowledge and information and dispersing false information into the world, like black books and, affecting people's perceptions of him in order to be worshipped and those kinds of things. Like that does happen, although it isn't as active as some of these other Daedric princes. He has to sustain his existence.
Yes. So
there is some of that, or at least it seems like there is. But again, kind of foggy stuff, though. We're not 100. He's the information about him is a little amorphous, just like he himself is.
Yeah, exactly. He's a physical manifestation of sort of what he is.
Right. So let's get into some of the trivia stuff here, because unless there's something else you want to cover before we move on.
I was going to say, I think we can move on to some trivia stuff about it because, we've covered a decent amount so far. He's got some interesting little stories that relate to him, but we don't need to go through each and every one. And also, I believe we actually might have done some of them on the previous version of this. So
yeah.
I think a little more trivia to close things up would be interesting.
Right. So he is, of any of the creatures in the Elder Scrolls, the one that is most in line with Lovecraftian horror. And I'm sure just even saying this, a lot of people who are familiar with Lovecraft's work are going to go, oh my God, you're right. So the Necronomicon and the relation of that to the Agma of Infinium, and even just the way it looks. This idea of a tentacled, unknowable appearance of eyes, this creature from the beyond that looks different, that is accumulating a wealth of knowledge, that when you become aware of it and you start to understand it, drives you insane. That is absolutely Lovecraftian horror right there.
Oh, yeah, very much so.
Absolutely. So Yog Sothoth, Shuma Gorath, the great race of Yith is even a reference. Hermaeus-Mora's realm of Apocrypha, a vast dark library full of books, is similar to the libraries of the great race of Yith. His obsession with scrying the tides of fate and seeing into the future fits perfectly with the theme of Deoloth, a being that is also concerned with imparting knowledge and the truth to whoever summons it. So a lot of these themes all come directly from Lovecraftian writing.
Very much. And just his whole vibe, like aesthetically, it really is the Lovecraft horror thing through and through.
Right. So it's as if he himself was just like a combination of different Lovecraftian works just all mushed into one character.
Yeah.
So very, very cool. But it totally makes sense that if you're into that kind of stuff, you're going to like Hermaeus-Mora. Another thing that's really cool is that, I think, did we note this before? During the events of The Elder Scrolls Online, which is, of course, set in the Second Era, a number of books from the future can be found.
Yes.
The books are implied to have been brought over to the Second Era through the use of magical halls created by a worshiper of Hermaeus-Mora. So this is one of the reasons why some of the books that you can find in ESO weren't written until later in the timeline.
Right. I had not actually heard that. That's an interesting little way of sort of retconning that into the series, because they do definitely do some interesting gymnastics sometimes to try to sync up some. That's kind of amusing. Okay. So it's like some of them were pulled out of, time and they ended up here, which I guess since ESO takes place during the interregnum, it's a disaster of timeline anyways, so it doesn't seem that far-fetched, but yeah, that's interesting. I kind of like that, actually. That's kind of neat.
Yeah So again, the whole like time breaking thing that kind of happens. So this is kind of an interesting quirk. So if the Dragonborn DLC is installed in Skyrim, Hermy, good old Hermy, will appear during the quest Discerning the Transmundane as a mass of dark green tentacles instead of the Wretched Abyss, which is his preferred form for dealing with mortals, though it will continue to be displayed as the Wretched Abyss. So the form that he shows up with before you get the DLC is different than the form he shows up with after you get the DLC, but it doesn't change for that quest line. So he kind of goes back and forth, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's pretty neat.
Yeah. So, and then real quick, Storn, a character from the Skull, often refers to Hermaeus-Mora as Herma-Mora due to Mora also being known as a demon in the Skull lore, which Rob, the princess, talked about. The Skull, right? Like them, like to the Skull, Herma-Mora is basically their Satan. He's like the devil incarnate to them. It's an
active enemy to try to avoid.
Right. So. Yeah. So which is completely opposite compared to what the Bosmer see him as just kind of this almost like this good spiritual power rather than a Daedric prince. So the worship of him varies in very different ways across all the different mortal races, but most of them see him simply as a Daedric prince and, the seeker and holder of, knowledge that you shouldn't have. So,
and the best Daedric Prince.
I couldn't find much about a voice actor. The voice is so different. I guess I could look a little bit harder. But I'm sure there's
in ESO compared to.
There's
because in Skyrim it's Wes Johnson.
Is it Wes Johnson in Skyrim?
It's Wes Johnson again.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Well, there you go.
His range is unparalleled.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
And he just kind of warbles his voice, huh?
I guess he just puts marbles in his mouth and talks real slow.
Wes Johnson.
I actually, fortunately, I do not know who.
For anybody who doesn't know, Wes Johnson does Sheogorath. He does a lot of the guards. He does like every other voice in Oblivion. He does many characters. And he's a super awesome guy. You should follow him on Twitter. He's a very cool guy, but he's a very talented voice actor. He does a lot of different voices in this series and a lot of other things.
Yeah, I don't actually know who. Shoot. Yeah, I don't know who does. I'm trying to actually look up who Hermaeus-Mora is in in Elder Scrolls Online. It is not Wes Johnson, because until recently, Wes Johnson wasn't in Elder Scrolls Online as a voice actor. He recently became one, which is interesting.
Yeah, they swapped him out with some other people for some of the other roles.
But prior to, he had not been in the actual Elder Scrolls Online. So like he's kind of a new addition. So whoever was doing the Hermaeus-Mora voice acting in Elder Scrolls Online was not him. And well,
maybe we'll find it out. We'll post it.
Yeah, I was browsing through, and all I can find is the reference to Wes Johnson. I can't find who else did it. But to be fair, they weren't bad. They were they spoke very similar, but it did sound kind of more like somebody who was mimicking Wes Johnson's version, right? As opposed to,
So, well, there you go. And anything else you want to add before we head out?
No, I don't think so. I don't know. This, in terms of just, joking aside, because this is definitely my favorite Deadric Prince, and everybody likes to joke about the fact that it's just like, he more is my go-to. But one of the things that I originally drew me to this character is just, it's very weird compared to anything else in the series as well. Like, Elder Scrolls has definitely got a wide swath of variety with characters and gods and stuff like that. Hermaeus-Mora is really out there, even compared to the rest of them. And I really like sort of the ambiguity that comes with Hermaeus-Mora, because like we had mentioned, Hermaeus-Mora he's got objectives, or it's got objectives, but at the same time, it's generally just floating around, doing its own thing, collecting. It's not overtly hostile or overtly friendly. It's like chaotically neutral, to be fair, because when you're beneficial to Hermaeus-Mora, no big deal. When you're not beneficial to Hermaeus-Mora, okay, all done. And a lot of times it's just like, Matt, you're dead. Like, I'm just done with you now. Like, nothing. It's just whatever Hermaeus-Mora is currently looking for is Hermaeus-Mora's objective, which is kind of neat, because the ambiguity to that is just kind of cool, because you can morph that into your own, like, oh, I like this character. Oh, nope, this character is my enemy. You can totally do it both ways. And the only other thing, which I make no bones about, Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind is my favorite in the series, but it pains me that Hermaeus-Mora has like no input in that game. There's no shrine. It's one of, so as weird as it is, the game that onboarded me hard to this series was lacking my favorite character. And looking back at that, it was one of those things that I never realized until later on. Because as soon as I found Hermaeus-Mora in Oblivion, I was like, oh, cool, it's a giant potato crab. Like, neat.
It's a blob monster tentacle thing.
And going back, I was like, where's Hermaeus-Mora? And it's just, it wasn't a focus in Morrowind.
Not really. Yeah.
No. So it's just weird that was kind of a Daedric omission for the most part in Elder Scrolls 3, which is, my joining of the series. And my favorite character wasn't really a focus in that one.
They were like, this game's already too weird. We can't add more.
We got to rein it in a little bit.
We can't add any more into this.
Look, we get 4 more tentacles and 1 eyeball, and I'm sorry, we're getting some new rating scale.
Yeah, we're approaching Japanese rating scales at this point. It's gone too far.
It's gone too far.
Gone too far. We can't do that. Yeah. So yeah, I like Hermaeus-Mora a lot. I think. And once you draw the Lovecraftian connections into it, all of a sudden
it's hard to avoid.
It's hard to avoid. Like if you are aware of that, and if you haven't drawn those connections before, you start to go, oh yeah, okay, yeah, totally, absolutely see all of that. That totally makes a lot of sense. But if you're not familiar with that kind of stuff, and that in the last 10 years, Lovecraftian horror has become so much more influential. In last 10 or 15 years. But if you go back to the release of Skyrim and Skyrim's DLC, I would argue that it wasn't as well known. And so coming across a creature like this in a game like that would have been a lot more surprising. And you may not have understood those references and those kinds of things. So it would have felt very left field, especially for a game like Skyrim that traded you went from Oblivion, so we went from Morrowind with like mushroom towers and like it felt like this alien landscape to Oblivion, which was basically high fantasy world, knights and and then of course demons coming through portals. And then you went to, and now we're going to go to the frigid north with Nords, and I'm a Nordling and I'm slaying dragons and like all the common, like regular kinds of tropes that we're familiar with in like European fantasy stuff. Right. And then this DLC and blobby tentacle monster. And all of a sudden we're off in like weird world again. Yeah.
It takes a pretty direct turn. All of a sudden it's like, oh, all right then.
Yes. And like, very different kind of setting and creatures and all that stuff gets like super weird. So it was a nice change. I thought it was a really cool change and a very interesting Deadric Prince to throw into the mix. And we've talked about this before. The ability of Elder Scrolls Online to go back and forth between the familiar and then the very unfamiliar, and the familiar and the very unfamiliar. And I hope with the next mainline game in the series that they're still able to do that. I hope that they still have some surprises, because we've gotten a lot of content with ESO over the last years now that we've become very familiar with the Daedric Princes. We've become very familiar with the different races and the different places you can go in Tamriel. I'm ready for something that does both feel the same, because it's going to be set in a place that should feel pretty familiar, but I'm also ready for things that feel very different at the same time. Like if we are going to go into a realm of oblivion or beyond that, I'm ready for something else to blow my mind.
Yes. And I guess before we end, one thing that actually is kind of an interesting note, Rob the Princess just mentioned some tie-ins to D&D with Elder Brains, but the one thing that I specifically, it's not really listed specifically as one of his minions, but it's just one of the things that Elder Scrolls Online has kind of done a decent bit fleshing it out, are with the D&D reference. I'm not a D&D player, so forgive me if Beholders, I believe they're called. They're the like eyeball things.
Yes, in D&D, right.
So in Elder Scrolls, the Elder Scrolls version of that is called a Watcher. It's this basically floating eyeball with some tentacles or whatever. Recently, specifically in Blackwood, I will not spoil it for you, but in Blackwood, there are quests related to these little Watchers being out in the world, literally collecting data for Hermaeus-Mora, which is very, very cool. There are a couple quests and stuff like that in game, so that relate to that. So it's neat to see like little mini versions of himself,
little mini Moras.
Kind of. Yeah, little mini Moras floating around doing like essentially data collection for him. I assume sent across Nemospores.
Of course. Yeah, that's awesome.
But that's just another thing that they've been kind of doing a decent amount with ESO that I thought was kind of neat and new as far as I know.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, go check that stuff out. All right, man. Well, this has been super fun as usual. Yeah. And do remember, patrons and potentially future patrons, if you'd like to join us on the patron chat, that will be on Thursday of this coming week. So on the 31st. And we look forward to chatting with you guys, maybe about which Daedric Prince you would like to mantle. My brain tried to mush Daedric and mantle together, and also thought gross all at the same time. But Lotus, you got anything going on that you want to shout out? I know we got big news about Tales of Tamriel.
We do. You'll be joining us this week, I believe.
Yeah,
exciting stuff. So you'll be joining us on Tales of Tamriel this week, which will be fun. We've got a big announcement to have over there. And then the other thing, the only thing I personally want to shout out, just because I think it might be of interest to the lore-based audience here more than the other show that I'm part of with Tales of Tamriel. I've got 3 episodes up now, and there will be more coming this weekend. I'm doing a little bit of editing and improvement based on people's suggestions from the first 3 episodes. So feedback has been awesome, and I really appreciate it. And these have kind of taken off a lot more than I expected. I thought this was going to be a little more niche, and it's a little bit not so niche. Nice. I am going through, for the sake of lore and the story, the group dungeons in game in which you need to have a set of people to do. I mean, you could try to do them solo, but more or less, they're more complicated for people to just get the storylines out of. So myself and some friends, we've actually kind of ironed out the best team comp for this. We're going through and slow rolling all of the stories as if you're watching a TV show. It's not our dialogue. It's not us. It's the game dialogue, us going to try to get any relevant lore and stuff like that, look around, show you the environments and stuff, and provide the storylines to these group things so that people can have them as reference points, because you also can't go back and redo these without making an entirely new character every time you do it. So it's been something we started trying to do. I figured it might have interest to people who struggle to find groups for this stuff, or when you do, because if you do like Dungeon Finder, people just run through and it's like they don't sit there for the dialogue and stuff like that. So this is going to be trying to remedy that for people. And I'm really glad that everybody's been enjoying it so far. We've got more coming. And then once we manage to tackle them all, the harder thing will be Trials, which is the 12-person group event, which also have some amazing stories to them. So we're going to be tackling the full Trials for storyline purposes for everybody coming up as well. So that's on my YouTube channel. I'm just putting them out as quick as we can do them, and I'm going to try to keep them, as informative for everybody and enjoyable to watch as I can come up with.
Nice. Yeah, that sounds awesome. Yeah, so go check that out. So Lotus of Doom on YouTube.
Yeah.
Just look it up. Lotus of Doom on YouTube. And I've got all my stuff over on robotsradio.net. So all of the network stuff, my shows, all the different lorecasts I do, Lord of the Rings lorecast, Fallout lorecast, The Witcher lorecast, Mass Effect lorecast, all that stuff. And then, of course, all the other shows on the network. And then any of the game streams or shows will be streamed on the Robots Radio YouTube or Twitch or Facebook pages. So all of that stuff, if you pick the platform you prefer, they all get restreamed to each of those platforms. And I'll probably be streaming some Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. So if you want some humorous shooting of Dungeons and Dragons creatures and things like that, come join me. I'll probably be streaming that actually tomorrow during the day. So because I knocked out all the stuff I needed to do for my podcast recording this week already, so I've got some time to stream tomorrow, so I'll be doing that. But that's what we got going on. And then of course we got our patron chat coming up next week, so we'll be hanging out with some of our favorite patrons, so that's coming up. But that's what we got, and thank you everybody for hanging out with us. And I guess if you tune into Tales of Tamriel on Sunday, then do you know what time that'll be, Lotus?
So we will be recording at 3 p.m. Eastern.
So there you go. So come hang out with us. I'll be joining them on that show, 3 p.m. Eastern, live on the Dungeon Crawler Network site.
No, it's just on mine.
Just on yours.
I now
Lotus
run
of
the
Doom.
live stream for that too. So it's just Lotus of Doom on Twitch.
There you go.
Nice and easy.
Yeah, so go drop them a follow. You can catch us on Sunday. So that's what we got going on. All right, everybody. We'll see you next time. And until then, don't pick up weird black books that are spewing fog all over the place, because you might get sucked into them and wonder what your body's doing on the other side of reality. All right.
Scrying them tides.
Scrying them tides. See you guys later. Bye, everyone.
See you later.
Thanks for listening to the Elder Scrolls Lorecast. If you have something you'd like to contribute to the show, please reach out to us at elderscrollslorecast@gmail.com or on Twitter @ESO Lorecast. I really appreciate you listening, and I'd love to hear from you soon.
You've been listening to a Robots Radio podcast. Smart shows for interesting people. Check out all the shows at robotsradio.net.
Once upon a time, 27 years after the bombs fell, there were two people, a vault dweller and a California girl. They met, and sparks flew. That's when things got interesting. Once Upon a Wasteland is their story. Follow Elizabeth Kirby and Odessa Valdez as they pursue their happily ever after in the post-apocalyptic Appalachian wasteland of Fallout 76. Available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and many other podcasting platforms. Once Upon a Wasteland, a Fallout 76 love story. Available now.